All right, so as promised, this is a screencast of me completing the formative. I'll tell you what I'm doing step by step. Please make corrections to yours. So first off, the first section here is solving these four quadratic equations. So notice the directions that say give your answer in simplest radical form. So I need to make sure I list my perfect squares at the top of my paper. You are not allowed to screenshot them and bring them from someplace else in your test. If you want to use them, they need to be written at the top of your paper. So I'll do that right now. 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, 9 squared is 81, 10 squared is 100, 11 squared is 121, 12 squared is 144, 13 squared is 169, 14 squared is 196, 15 squared is 225. Oops, there's too many 2's in there. And then I told you guys you can stop there because I'm not going to give you in this chapter anything higher than that. Okay, let's get started. So I'll use that when I need it. This says solve each equation for x, put your answer in simplest radical form, round to the nearest hundredth if necessary. So first off, I want to make sure you're giving your answers properly, okay? All right, so this I need to solve for x. X is squared. So before I square root, I have to subtract 5 from both sides. I have x squared is equal to 80. And now to get rid of this square right here, I can square root both sides. Whenever I square root, I have to square root and account for the positive and negative solution. So now I have x equals plus or minus. I write that down right away. Now I have root 80. So first question I ask myself is, do I know the square root of 80? Okay. So I look up here and I say, do I know the square root of 80? No, I know 81. Close, but no. So that x is, can I simplify it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to simplify it. If any of these numbers in this list go into 80, it's simplifiable. Okay. This one is simplifiable. So I'm going to break it into 2 radicals. This one right here must be from that list. It cannot be anything else, and it has to be the highest number from that list that goes in there. So I'm going to come back up to this list. I'm going to say, where does 80 fall? It falls right here. So now I'm going to start checking to the left. Does 64 go into 80? No. Does 49? No. Does 36? No. Now, some people got sick of this method, and they're like, 4 does. Well, guess what? It's not the highest. So no, that's not right. 25? No. 16? Yes. 16 is the biggest perfect square that goes into 80, not 4. 16 goes in there 5 times. If I wasn't sure if any of these numbers go into 80, I could always use a calculator. I could do 80 divided by, and whatever number I'm checking. I was checking 16 here. It goes in there 5 times. Now I need to write this simplified. So next I need to know, what is the square root of 16? What is the square root of 16? 4. And then I have root 5. So this right here, let me move it down a little bit. This right here is my answer in simplest radical form. This is simplest radical form. How do I know? It's because it's simplified. I didn't leave it as root 80, and there's a radical in it, okay? Now, the directions also say if you write something in simplest radical form, I also want it as a decimal. So now I'm going to get it as a decimal. So I have 2 answers. I have positive root 5, and I have positive 4 root 5, and I have negative 4 root 5. So let's see what those are. 4 root 5. What did I accidentally hit here? I'm going to hit go to. I forgot the 5. 4 root 5. I have x equals 8 it says nearest hundredth, which is 2 decimal places. It's 94, and next to that is a 4, so I keep it as a 94. And then I also need negative 4 root 5, which is negative 8.94. Could I write it as plus or minus for this one? Yes, but I'm going to choose to write it separate now. So there's my simplest radical form. There's my decimal answer. All right, let's move on to the next one here. I need to get x squared by itself so I can square root. Right now it's not by itself, so I need to take 2 steps to get it by itself. I need to subtract 8, then divide by 3. So first I'll subtract 8. I have 3x squared is equal to 15. Still can't square root yet because x squared is not isolated. I'm going to divide by 3. So now I have x squared is equal to 5. All right, now x squared is isolated. I can square root to solve. I'm going to do square root plus or minus, square root plus or minus. So I have x equals plus or minus. I write it down right away. Okay, so now just like the last one, I had root 80 in the last one. This one's root 5. I need to simplify root 5. Do I know the square root of 5? No. So I come up to my list and I say, okay, where does 5 fall? 5 falls right here. So now I need to check to the left. Does 4 go into 5? No. So what does that mean? That means root 5 is not simplifiable. So it's just plus or minus root 5. Just like if I couldn't simplify root 80, it'd be plus or minus root 80, but I could simplify that. So this is in simplest radical form. Okay, it's simplified as much as it can be. Just like if I ask you to simplify 1/2 and you're like, I can't, it's as simplified as it can be. And there's still a radical in your answer. So simplest radical form. Now I also want my decimal answers. So x equals x equals. So I need to know what root 5 is, and I need to know what negative root 5 is. So root 5 is 2.20. There's on the calculator it says 23. Right next to it is 6. So that's 24. So 2.24. And then I also have negative root 5, which is negative 2.24. Okay, let's move on to C. So actually, let's do D next, okay? Because I feel like C is easier than D, and if we can do D, we can definitely do C. Okay, so here's my square. It is on this x plus 3 quantity squared, so I cannot square root until that's by itself. So I want you to realize this is something right here, and I need to get it by itself. So if it was an x, everyone would say add 4 divided by 2. So if I want to get that by itself, I'm going to add 4 first to both sides. 2 times x plus 3 quantity squared equals 24. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Divide by 2, divide by 2. I have x plus 3 quantity squared is equal to 24 divided by 2 is 12. Okay, so now I have my squared set of parentheses isolated. So now I can get rid of that square by square rooting. So I'm going to do square root plus or minus. Square root plus or minus. This square cancels out, the square root cancels out this square. And all I have left on this side is x plus 3 equals plus or minus. And now I have root 12. So I need to know, is root 12 like root 5 and it's not simplifiable? Or is root 12 like 80 and it is simplifiable? The only way to know is to check your list. So 12 falls right here. I start going this way. Does 9 go into 12? No. Does 4 go into 12? Yes. 4 goes into it. So it is simplifiable. So I'm going to break it into its 2 radicals. This first one has to be from the list, and we said 4 goes in there. And we know it goes in there 3 times. Now I'm actually going to say what the square root of 4 is. What is the square root of 4? 2. And then I have root 3. Okay, you're almost done on this one except for x is not by itself. So now I just need to get x by itself. I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. And I have x equals, this number you always write first, so negative 3. This number you always write second, plus or minus 2 root 3. This is your answer in simplest radical form. You simplified the radical, and there's still a radical in your answer. Now I have to get my 2 decimal answers. All right, so I'm going to get ready by doing x equals x equals. Okay, so the first one I get by doing negative 3 plus 2 root 3. So I'm going to go over my calculator. Negative 3 plus 2 root 3. And I get 0.46. Now I have to do, for my second one, it's not negative 0.46, so please don't jump to that. Negative 3 minus 2 root 3. Negative 3 minus 2 root 3 is negative 6.46. So there's my decimal answers. Okay, let's look at B now. Okay, so notice that there's a square in B, and it's on this set of parentheses, and it has to be by itself first, which it is, right? There's nothing in the front of it. There's nothing behind it. So I can solve this by square rooting right now. Square root plus or minus, square root plus or minus. This square root cancels out this square. I have x minus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 25. Do I know that? Yes. If you notice, it's on your list, right? That means you know the square root of 25. Square root of 25 is 5. So just like the last one we did, I have to get x by itself still, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So now I have x equals, remember we write down this first, which is 4, then this second, plus or minus 5. Am I boxing this to say this is simplest radical form? No. Why not? There's no radical in it. So that means there's no simplest radical form or a decimal answer. There's just 2 nice answers, and now we're going to get those. The first one we get by doing 4 plus 5, which is 9. The second one we get by doing 4 minus 5, which is negative 1. So there's my 2 answers. Okay, let's move on to number 2. So number 2 wants you to consider this equation right here, and we wanted to compare it to y equals x squared. So that has no movement up, down, left, right. It's not wider or narrower. We want to say how this has changed. Okay, so question first is, does the graph open upward or downward? So to decide that, you're going to look at your a value, which is in front, and see if it's positive or negative. Since it's positive, it's opening upwards. Next, B, if is the graph wider, narrower, or the same. So you're going to look at that same 5 right there. If you think bigger means wider, you are wrong. Bigger means narrower. Smaller means wider. Okay? So since the number is bigger than 1, it is narrower. Last, how has the graph been translated, shifted compared to the original? So I highly suggest that you write down the vertex of this parabola. If I said graph this parabola, where would the vertex be? 3, 2. That means that if I were to graph it, I'd go right 3 up 2. So this is right 3 up 2. All right, speaking of graphing, this next one is graph the following equation and write the range. So I need that vertex again. So once again, you look at this and this. You take the opposite of the first one, which is negative 2. Keep the second number the same, which is negative 5. Then I need 2 numbers higher than negative 2, negative 1 and 0, 2 lower, negative 3 and negative 4. I'm going to start by plugging in negative 1. So I'll plug in negative 1 right here. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1. Then I have to square it and subtract 5. 1 squared is 1. 1 minus 5 is negative 4. I'll get the same thing as if I plug in negative 3. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing but for 0. I'm going to plug in 0 here. 0 plus 2 is 2. Then I have to square it and subtract 5. 2 squared is 4. 4 minus 5 is negative 1. And now I can graph my parabola. Negative 2, negative 5. Negative 1, negative 4. 0, negative 1. And there's my parabola. Now I also have to do the range. When you're writing range, this is the lowest number, this is the highest number. Always. They can't go highest to lowest. That's not how range or domain works. So lowest y value is right there, which is negative 7, comma. The highest y value is an arrow, so that's infinity. Parentheses on the infinity, bracket on the negative 7 because there is a point there. All right, next one here, I need my vertex first. I got to do the opposite of this, same as this, so 4, 6. This is 5, 6, 3, 2. All right, I'm going to plug in 5 first. So I'll plug in 5 here. 5 minus 4 is 1. Then I have to square it. Then I have to multiply by negative 2. Then I have to add 6. 1 squared is 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Plus 6 is 4. Now I have to plug in. Oh, I didn't mean to erase all that. There we go. Just there. Now I have to plug in 6. So I'll plug in 6. 6 minus 4 is 2. Then I have to square that. Then I have to multiply that by -2. So 4 times -2 is -8. Then I have to add 6, which is -2. So now I'm ready to graph this. I have 4, 6, 3, 4, and 5, 4, and then 6, -2, and 2, -2. So here's my downward facing parabola. Now I need to do the range. Remember, lowest first, lowest, highest. So lowest is an arrow pointing downward, which it's infinitely forever in the negatives. And then the highest it goes is 6. Parentheses on the infinity, bracket on the 6. Okay, I forgot to erase these from when I did them in class. I was just recycling what we did in class. So let me do that real quickly. Okay. Hold on. I want to make sure you get full credit on this, so I don't want to skip over anything. Okay, almost there. All right, so on that problem that we're going to do next, it gives you a picture along with an equation, and then it wants you to graph another graph on there. Okay, so it says that this is y equals 3x squared plus 5. So let's see why. If you put parentheses right here where they go, you can see the vertex is 0, 5. There's a 3 in front. Remember, bigger number means narrower. So this is narrower. Okay, the vertex is 0, 5, so that's the point 0, 5. And this has got to be a narrower graph. All right, now I'm going to look at the one that I was given to graph. Put the parentheses in. The vertex is 0, 2. There's a 1/4 in front. Remember, smaller number means wider. So I need to have a vertex of 0, 2, which is right below 0, 5. And it has to be wider. That one's narrow. This one has to be wide. Okay, they're both upward facing though. All right, last but not least, it says Allie and Jim are running an experiment involving dropping objects from various heights. They have started from different floors in the same building. Consider the picture below. Okay, so first off, in order to do a gravity problem, we know the gravity formula, which is h of t equals -16 t squared plus h naught. Okay, that's our object falling on Earth equation. So this one here says Allie drops the rock from 134 feet. 134 feet is our initial height. H naught is initial height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute 134 in for h naught. And then the question here asks, how long will it take to reach the ground? That is when the height, h of t, is 0. So the second thing I'm going to do is take 0 and substitute it in for h of t. All right, so now I'm ready to write my equation. I have 0 equals -16t squared plus 134. Okay, so please make sure I'm looking for that equation. You need to have that equation for your first point. Now you need to solve for t squared. There should be 4 steps total. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 steps total. Okay, step number 1. Subtract 134 from both sides. You must show it. You can't just do it. All right, now I still don't have t squared by itself. I have to divide by -16. Please show it in your work. Now I need to know what t squared is equal to. So now I'm going to use my calculator to divide these. -134 divided by -16 is 8.375, not 8.38, 8.375. All right, I'm not rounding because I'm not at my final answer yet. Now I need to get t by itself, so I'm going to square it to solve. Do not forget plus or minus. I have t equals, I'm going to write down the plus or minus right away. And now I need the square root of 8.375. Enter. All right, so that is 2 decimal places is 2.89. Okay, now this is all the algebra. Everything that's written down right now is worth 2 points. If you're missing anything, you're getting points taken off. But I still haven't answered the question. This is worth 3 points total. The final question is highlighted in yellow there. How long will it take for it to reach the ground? So that is positive 2.89 seconds is my final answer. Okay? Please don't think not writing this is okay. You have to do the algebra correctly. All right, last one's pretty similar. Jim drops the rock from 98 feet. So instead we're going to use 98 feet. How long will it take to reach the ground? So I have 0 equals negative 16t squared. I'm going to turn off my alarm here. Negative 16t squared plus 98. Once again, I have to solve for t squared so I can square root. Subtract 98 from both sides. I have negative 98 is equal to negative 16t squared. I now have to get t squared by itself, so I'm now going to divide by negative 16. I have t squared is equal to, go into my calculator, negative 98 divided by negative 16 is 6.125, not 6.13. And now I'm ready to get t by itself by square rooting plus or minus, square root plus or minus, t equals plus or minus, and now I'm going to put that in my calculator. Square root of 6.125, enter, 2.47. So there's all the algebra correct. You have to have the plus or minus 2.47. And then now I'm going to get the actual final answer, which is 2.47 seconds. All right, that's the formative.